Hey everyone, we just got a chance to play Total War Warhammer 3. It was a ton of fun.
We had a great time playing it. We got to play for a couple hours, so let's check out everything we learned.
If you aren't familiar with it, Total War is a grand strategy series, and the Total War Warhammer series takes place entirely on the old world, the world of Warhammer Fantasy.
As someone who had never played a Total War game before, I was coming in completely blind, but having played a lot of games like Civilization, there were a lot of those mechanics which really lend themselves well into figuring out how Total War sort of functioned, and also there was clearly a lot of influence from games like Heroes of Might and Magic in there as well. So if any of those games are familiar to you, a lot of these upcoming mechanics, which we'll talk on soon, will seem very familiar to you. So when you're starting any new game, it works, again, sort of like Civilization does, where you start with your one city in your single province, and as you travel around the map with your lord, it is all turn-based, you'll encounter other marauding bands of villains that you must defeat, and every time you get close to one of them, a live action or real-time battle starts.
Yes, live action, Matt. Oh boy, I've got news for you, buddy.
It looks so realistic.
I thought they did overhaul the graphics completely.
Joking aside, it is very visually stunning. All of especially the lighting effects look very cool.
The shadows
are fantastic. There's all the different sets and scenery and environments all have a drastically different feel to them. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Each battle that you will enter into is real time, and you will be able to specifically control each unit in a more,
granular.
Yeah, rather than like a full wide battle, you're controlling each little group of units individually. Or if you want, there's a quick battle option, and it will just run the simulation for you, and it will just let you finish the battles without really having to get down to that level if you're just not interested in doing that.
In 1 and 2, you got to play classic armies like elves, high elves, wood elves, dwarves,
all the boring
chaos
races.
Dwarves, Skaven also.
Okay.
And
most of the boring races.
In Warhammer, in Total War Warhammer 3, we get to play as 4 brand new factions. You'll take control of one of 8 different factions. There are, and you'll play a legendary lord from within those factions. Chaos gets all 4 flavors. You got Tzeentch, Khorne, Slaanesh, and Nurgle, and you get to command a legendary named demon like Kugath Plaguefather, Kairos Fateweaver, Skarbrand, or Inkari. The 5th Chaos faction, Chaos Undivided, gives you a really cool new option. You get to play as a build-your-own demon prince who can have aspects of any or all of them at once, which is a really neat mechanic. We'll get into that. You can also, as Kislev, play as the Tsarina Katerin, who heads up the Frost Witches and commands great powers of ice, or you can play as Patriarch Kostaltin, the head of the Ursunite faith. In Grand Cathay, you can play as Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, or Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon. And then if you play in the Ogre Kingdoms, you can play as Greasus Goldtooth or Scrag the Slaughterer.
Those all sound accurate to me. Let's talk about how each of them play.
Yeah. So for this demo, we got to play as both Cathay and Chaos Undivided, and the 2 factions played completely differently from each other. Grand Cathay feels a lot more like a traditional kind of, you've got your like peasant forces and your elite warriors, and you're kind of going around trying to make diplomatic alliances with people, put down rebellions in your province. You've got some magic, your hero can turn into a dragon, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with like the direction of the winds of magic. They have a cool compass that can point at one of 4 different directions, and you get to change it every so often to kind of determine what kind of buffs you're getting, what kind of debuffs the enemy's getting, and you're kind of charged with protecting the Great Bastion from the forces of chaos.
And then beyond all of that, there is tons of other mechanics. There's like we were saying, there's a whole balance, within Grand Cathay, there's a balance of yin and yang that you have to manage, and each unit has a yin or a yang alignment to it, and keeping those in balance will give you buffs across your whole army. And they have the trade route system where you have to put a certain amount of cargo on your caravan and then send it to a far distant city to earn more money. And there's random events that they encounter along the way, and it's a like we were saying earlier, just an almost completely different game. And while we only got to play through Grand Cathay and Chaos Unleashed, I have to imagine each of the other 6 factions are going to play also equally as different, so it's almost 8 different games in one.
Chaos Undivided plays a lot differently. It plays a little bit more like a different game.
I would say if you had to describe how Chaos Undivided works, it's a combination of your typical RPGs, your Skyrims and such, because you do have these different equipments that you can get. But the equipment slots themselves are probably a lot closer to games like Spore, where each of the elements that you unlock as you basically you pay tribute to each of the 4 chaos gods, and they give you points, and then those points unlock body parts. And each of these body parts you can slot into your head, chest, wings, legs, arms.
You can get different weapons. You can get like 2-handed weapons, weapons to hold in 2 hands. You can get a shield. There's a lot of options. You really can kind of customize your demon prince.
And each of the body parts you get not only provide different bonuses, either active abilities or passive buffs and debuffs and all those other things, but that also drastically changes how your character looks, which is just a fun flair that they didn't have to add in, but by doing it, it adds a very cool, interesting, like, I want to swap out this head because I like how that one looks better, but I really like these bonuses. So it's just a very engaging system that they've developed that I could see easily spending many hours getting lost in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many mouths do you want on your demon prince?
Several.
Yeah, and that's all possible. One here, one in your stomach, good old Nurgle. There's a lot of options. It's a ton of fun to play around with. In addition, all of the different factions have, if you're like me, you love tech trees, and all of the different factions have their own unique take on a tech tree. So if you're playing in Grand Cathay, for instance, you have your Imperial researchers who are kind of determining what technology they're going to unlock, and it's going to take you so many turns to do it. And each one kind of builds upon the next, but you get to decide where you're going, how many turns you're going to spend. And what's really neat about this system is that you can go all the way to the end. I did, and you can click on the last one, and it'll be like, yeah, you can have that in 66 turns.
Right, just get it queued up and forget about it. Set it and forget it.
Right? But looking at the Chaos Undivided tech tree, we got to see that it is kind of based on what you as a demon prince unlock, and it's a lot more in line with your dude, your main guy, whatever you name him.
But then not only do you have the individual tech trees, each of your so there are lords and heroes, and each of those also have their own skill trees that you get to customize each of those individually. So you can have one hero that's specifically very good at being garrisoned in one of your cities and just hunkering down, and then you can have another that's very quick to move across the map, and just having all of these customization and all of this sounds like a lot, I realize, but again, the game does a great job of really laying it out one step at a time, so it never feels overwhelming as you're learning, which I can speak from experience because I did.
And if you are familiar with Total War games, you will find a drastic improvement in this one. I think they've really come a long way. I think we got to see a lot of pretty good quality of life changes in Total War 3 Kingdoms, and those are here and iterated on. It's kind of the best of 3 Kingdoms in Total War Warhammer 2. and then it's become its own thing. Diplomacy is a lot more nuanced. You have options to make alliances and trade routes, and to sort of influence other people to either join you, or you can incense them, as Matt did, into declaring war on you. There's a get off my land button that you can click now to tell them to leave, and you get to attack that unit, that army, with no repercussions. It's just good. You can say, no, get out of here. There are different stances you can adopt. The siege battles and settlement battles have been majorly reworked. You might have seen some of those. We've talked about them on Bowls, but getting to play through them firsthand, let me tell you, it is like something else entirely. You mentioned how granular the game is, and I think that's a good point. There is a lot to this game. As someone who's familiar with the Total War series, this game kind of has even more of it. And what did you think as someone who had never played a Total War series before?
So when I was poking, I have a habit of when I start a new game, I don't know, just poking around every menu, every drop down, everything that I can find to click on. And I was pleasantly overwhelmed by the amount of options. It is, if you're new to these sort of like grand 4X sort of games in general, it can be a little much, but the game has a fantastic tutorial sequence that will walk you through each screen and phase and button and step and everything that they do. But there are just so many different options, and within each different faction that you can play, and they each play so incredibly differently.
While we did kind of get our butts kicked, I felt like if we had a little more time, or a little more patience, or a little bit better preparation, you could turn what the game tells you is a decisive defeat into a close victory, and that feels extremely good. That is the Total War magic that is on display here. And it's very much, it has the feeling, the authenticity of like Warhammer Fantasy, of the tabletop game, where things like flanking maneuvers and the positioning of your units matters a lot. It's simple to learn, but you can spend a lot of time mastering the different systems, and it's extremely satisfying to do so.
It's definitely a sort of game where, since they do have a lot of different difficulty options, if you do really want that sort of game that rewards you for getting down to that level of granularity, you will be rewarded for it, because otherwise you will just get your butt kicked, as we did. So it's really rewarding to play. It is a ton of fun. I am very excited to get my hands on a full copy, since I can tell you right off the bat, I am very eager to spend hundreds of hours on this game.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for joining us. We had a blast. We know you will too once the game is out and you can get your hands on it.
And if you're looking for a little more about the game, you can check out our full written content, as well as an interview with some of the developers in the description below. We will have those links there.
If you want to see a Warhammer 3 Cathay trailer reaction, you can click somewhere around here. You know what to do. You've been on the internet before. We're going to go back to it. So see you in the data stream. Bye.
Bye. All right, so that is a bad start.
Leave this in.